Hey everybody, Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm going to be talking about psychic conduits in my Homebrew Psionic and Psychic Warrior class for 5th edition. Now, some of you may be saying, well, what the heck is a psychic conduit? Well, I talk about a lot of different things in my 5th edition rendition of Psionics and Psychic Warrior, like Psychic Well and Drams, which are basically psionic points. But come on, realistically, who wants to say how many PPs do you have left? Really? So I call them drams. It's kind of more stylized elegance to it, more like 2nd edition elegance than just straight up, well, here's your pluses and here's your points. So I'm going with the spell slot system from 5th edition in the DMG. It's like all the way in the back as an option the DM can use. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to couple it with a bit of meta magic, which is really going to be called meta psionic. And excuse me. One of the things I'd like to talk to you guys about is psychic conduits, because in 5th edition I'm going to have, unlike 2nd and a few other editions, psionics and magic. They're both arcane. So, I mean, divine spellcasting is arcane in 5th edition. Arcane, warlock, all that stuff, it's all magic. And I'm going to tell you, the second conduit is basically how I'm going to explain, really, well, how's psionics magic. And I don't really care what they said in other editions. I mean, I do care, because probably somebody cares, but I don't care, really, in the sense of I'm just going to do whatever I think is appropriate to make 5th edition flow better, because I think a major thing with 5th edition is that it needs to flow. If it's not flowing together, if it's not meshing, if it's being made more complex by the addition of classes, and I know I'm adding psionics, so it is going to be more complex, but it's not obnoxious like psionics and magic is different. If I had done that, then I would say to myself, this is going to be a little insane. But psychic conduit is basically the psions or the wild talents or the wilders will manifest, and that is what makes these conduits, or these areas of psychic energy, that the arcane energy will flow to produce this effect. So it's a very individualized process. So each psion doesn't. They could all be doing a mage hand, let's say. I know it's a mage hand, but a little minor telekinesis. And for each one of them, if you examine their psychic conduits, they're different. And it's more intuitive based on their body, and based on their metaphysical makeup. So I don't want to get too high-tech since it's a fantasy game, but the idea being that it's more akin to something like this and these guys, which are circuit boards and different drivers. It's more akin to all this intricate maneuvering and coming out and going in and having these different modules and nodules and things. It's more akin to like an arcane version of this than it is to the system of magic used for wizards and their spell book. And basically, once you learned a magical formula, it was it. You didn't need to know anything else in the sense of, this is a first level spell, magic missile, or let's say detect magic. Detect magic looks the same whether you're a cleric, whether you're a wizard, whether you're a druid that took it, warlock, sorcerer, whatever. However you got it and whoever you are. If you're a fighter that just decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to take magic initiate and I learned how to detect magic. Well, if that's what you want to do, it's all the same. Unless it's a spell-like ability, but it's still very similar. It's the same outcome. So if you write it down in a book or anything of that like, then it's going to look exactly the same. You could translate it into your book. You might add your little notes and notations because, yes, you're still an individual person, but rather you're an individual joining a system and a way of thinking rather than an individual making their own system, which kind of parallels to how I'm making Psionics as a homebrew game anyway, which is neat. But that metaphor aside, that likeness aside, what I'm saying is the second conduit has more in and like individualized psychic circuitry, not surgery. I want to always say psychic surgery. It has more to do with psychic circuitry than it does some kind of formula in a book. So that's one of the reasons why any psychic psionic ability that isn't a spell doesn't get made a spell. So it's not like a psychic. It's not like a psychic warrior or a psionic would have something written down in a book. It's actually written into their body, if you can think about it that way, like internal tattooing of arcanic flows and movements of energy and like circuitry within inside the body. So basically, you can think of it like a different, like it's a nervous system, or it's like your circulatory system. So you've got this arcanic psionic energy in your system, and it's woven into your body, which everyone's body is unique. Even twins, identical twins, their genetics start to change. So even that is different. So what I would say is, when you're looking at a psion and you detect magic or detect psionics, what you see is a glowing, like an aura. Based on the coloration and intensity, you get an idea of what type of discipline it is, and also you get an idea of what intensity it is, and the type of magic, the type of psionic magic it is. So that's kind of just what I wanted to give you an idea of how I made psionics for 5th edition be like magic, and it works. Everything's seamless. It works the same way. Basically, like you're your spell book. In that sense, you don't have to, you don't prep spells in the same way, but this idea that you're building a spell book inside your body, and that gives you access to these powers, because basically you cram your will into these psionic circuits, the psychic conduits, and they allow you to manifest an ability. So your will fuels this manifestation, and probably a lot of psionic players manifested their powers unconsciously. Either, they were the meditative, contemplative person, and they just gained this understanding of the universe, in their individualized body, or they came about it through stress or desire. I have a really big need. I will not die because of this encounter or in this situation, or I will fight off these attackers, or I will protect my family or my village. And then the powers manifest through that need, that will, manifesting the arcane might. So excuse me. That's kind of the gist. That's kind of the lowdown on psionic circuits and psychic conduits. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. You can also like, subscribe, and share. And you can find me on Reddit, Nerdarchy's subreddit, Nerdarchy, How to Stay Nerdy. You can also find us on Facebook, and you're probably watching this either from the website or on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hey, we have a website. It's called nerdarchy.com. If you're on the website, well, hey, you can see that this thing's coming from YouTube. So with that, have a good day, evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Enjoy and stay nerdy.